My parents always said family was everything. But in our house, everything had a hierarchy. For my sister Elena's college acceptance, they splurged on a $15,000 European tour. Paris lights, Italian villas, the works. Me? For my own milestone, a rusty old laptop they picked up at a garage sale for $50. Who knows? My dad chuckled. Maybe you'll code your way to something. Elena jetted off to chase dreams under foreign skies. I hunkered down in my basement room, fingers flying over sticky keys, learning that in this family, potential was a spotlight, and love came with conditions. But when that beat-up machine sparked an idea that ballooned into a $150 million tech empire, the relatives who dismissed me as the quiet one had to swallow their words as I rebuilt from the ashes they left behind. My name is Alex Thorne, and this is my story. Not just for payback, though there's a sting of that, but because I know too many of you have felt that shadow, the one cast by siblings who shine brighter, parents who pick favorites, and the quiet ache of being second best. Before I dive in, drop a hey in the comments or share where you're tuning in from. It is different knowing my words land somewhere real. Thanks for being here. And if this resonates, smash that subscribe. Each one reminds me that overlooked voices can echo loudest. The morning light filters through the blinds of my loft in Seattle, casting stripes on the hardwood like bars I've long since slipped through. The city hums outside, a pulse of traffic and drizzle. But inside, my coffee steams beside a monitor glowing with code. Lines of logic I wrote at 19, when the world felt like a locked door and that battered laptop was my only key. The screen's reflection catches a scar on my knuckle, a memento from the night I punched a wall after Elena's postcard arrived from Florence. All gold ink and boasts about gelato and cathedrals. My parents framed it on the mantle, right beside her high school valedictorian plaque. My coding projects? They called them hobbies, like I was knitting scarves instead of building something real. Let's go back to 2015, Tacoma, Washington. I was 18, fresh out of high school, accepted into a community college for computer science. It wasn't glamorous. No Ivy-covered halls or study abroad programs, but it was mine. Elena, 2 years older, had just gotten into a prestigious arts college in New York, majoring in dance and performance. Mom, a retired art teacher with a flair for drama, saw her as a canvas of potential, poised, charming, a dancer who could spin a room's attention like thread. Dad, a mid-level bank manager with a knack for numbers but not for nuance, saw her as his legacy, the daughter who'd go places. Me? I was the afterthought, the kid who fixed the router when it crashed, who taught himself Python while they cheered Elena's recitals. The laptop was their idea of a gift, handed over at my community college graduation dinner at a local pizza joint. Dad slid it across the table, wrapped in newspaper because we're practical people. It was an old Dell, screen smudged, keyboard missing the Q and Z keys, fan wheezing like it was on its last breath. Found it at Mrs. Johnson's garage sale, he said with a wink. Thought you could tinker with it. Elena laughed, her voice like tinkling bells that always made Mom smile. Alex, you and your gadgets. Maybe you'll invent the next Facebook or something. Her tone said she didn't believe it, and neither did they. Mom was already checking her phone for Elena's flight itinerary to Paris. I carried the laptop to my basement bedroom, where the air smelled of damp concrete and old books, and plugged it in. The screen flickered to life, and I felt a spark. Not anger, not yet, but a quiet defiance. If this was all they thought I was worth, I'd make it worth more. The basement was my sanctuary, a 10 by 12 box with a single bulb dangling from the ceiling. The walls were lined with shelves of sci-fi novels and outdated tech manuals, my escape from the Elena show upstairs. I spent that summer teaching myself to code, wrestling with the laptop's sluggish processor and frequent crashes. Online forums became my teachers. Stack Overflow, Reddit threads, YouTube tutorials with bad audio. I learned to navigate Linux to bypass the laptop's broken Windows install, my fingers memorizing shortcuts as the keys grew stickier. Upstairs, the house buzzed with preparations for Elena's trip, suitcases packed with sundresses, a new camera, Mom's endless list of museums to visit. She's going to see the world, Mom told the neighbors, her voice bright with pride. My world was a 15-inch screen and a dream no one else could see. Elena's departure was a spectacle. The whole family drove her to Seattle-Tacoma Airport, Mom snapping photos as Elena posed with her boarding pass. "Paris awaits," she captioned her first Instagram post, her smile radiant against the terminal's fluorescent glow. I stayed home, claiming a coding project due for class. In truth, I couldn't stomach the fanfare. That night, as rain tapped the basement window, I started sketching an idea for an app. Not a game, like Dad suggested, but something practical. A task manager that didn't just list to-dos but learned your habits, predicted deadlines, and synced across devices. I called it Nexus, a nod to the connections I craved but couldn't find in my own family. The idea consumed me. I'd code until dawn, the laptop's fan whirring like a second heartbeat, fueled by instant noodles and stubbornness. Classes by day taught me theory, but nights in the basement taught me grit. Elena's postcards arrived weekly. Venice canals, Roman ruins, each one framed by Mom on the mantel like relics of a saint. At dinner, they'd read her letters aloud, her words painting a life of adventure. "She's dancing in plazas now," Dad said, his fork pausing mid-air. "That's our girl." My updates, a completed app prototype, a professor's praise, were met with distracted nods. "That's nice, Alex," Mom would say, already turning to Elena's next email. One night, after a particularly glowing update from Elena about a ballet performance in Barcelona, I snapped. I stormed to the basement and punched the wall, my knuckles splitting against the concrete. Blood smeared the keyboard as I typed, but I didn't stop. The pain felt like proof I was still here, still fighting. The next morning, I showed my prototype to my professor, Dr. Chun, a no-nonsense woman with a knack for spotting potential. "This is rough, but it's smart," she said, peering over her glasses. "Polish it, Alex. You've got something." Her words were the first real validation I'd gotten, a lifeline I clung to as Elena's star kept rising. By spring, Nexus was functional, if bare bones. I tested it with classmates, tweaking based on their feedback. Downloads started at the college's app showcase. A dozen, then 50. "It's like having a personal assistant," one user wrote, and I grinned at the laptop's cracked screen. Elena came home for a brief visit, her stories filling the house like perfume. "Europe's changed me," she said over dinner, her hair swept into a dancer's bun. Mom hung on every word, Dad beamed, and I ate in silence, the laptop's weight in my mind heavier than the pizza on my plate. When I mentioned Nexus, Dad chuckled. "Still tinkering, huh? Don't forget to have some fun." Elena smirked, and I saw it then, the hierarchy, clear as code. She was the dream, I was the debug. I launched Nexus that summer, uploading it to app stores from the public library's Wi-Fi, because our home internet was for Elena's video calls. Downloads trickled in, 100, then 1,000. Reviews called it intuitive and a game changer. I checked the stats obsessively, each number a step away from the basement. But at home, it was still Elena's stage. She announced she was extending her European adventure, and my parents dipped into savings to fund it. "It's an investment in her future," Dad said when I asked why they couldn't help with my tuition. "Dance is her passion." My passion? A hobby. I stopped asking, pouring everything into Nexus instead. That old laptop, with its missing keys and flickering screen, became my rebellion, my proof that I could build something out of nothing. The rain in Tacoma never stopped, a steady drumbeat against the basement window that matched the rhythm of my fingers on the laptop's worn keys. Each night, I sank deeper into Nexus, the app that was becoming more than code. It was a lifeline, a way to carve my name into a world that barely saw me. The house above buzzed with Elena's orbit, her calls from Europe, her photos pinned to the fridge, her voice a constant hum through Mom's phone. Down here, in the damp dark, I built something that didn't need their applause. The laptop screen glowed like a small rebellion, its cracks and glitches a mirror of my own jagged edges. I was 19 now, a year into community college, balancing classes and coding. The laptop, that $50 garage sale relic, was a beast to wrangle, slow, prone to freezing, its battery dead unless plugged in. But I'd learned its quirks, coaxing it through late-night sessions with Python and JavaScript. Nexus was evolving, no longer just a task manager, but a system that learned from users, suggesting deadlines based on their habits. I'd lie awake, the ceiling's water stains forming constellations, imagining millions using my app, their lives smoother because of something I'd built from nothing. Mom and Dad didn't get it. At dinner, they'd talk about Elena's latest adventure, dancing in a Viennese square, dining with artists in Lisbon. She's living art, Mom said, her eyes misty, as if Elena's every step was a brushstroke on her canvas. My updates were footnotes. I got Nexus to sync across devices, I'd say, and Dad would nod, distracted. Good for you, son. Keep at it. Elena's postcards, framed like museum pieces, crowded the mantel. My app, with its growing downloads, lived only in my basement, invisible to them. One evening, I overheard Mom on the phone with Elena, planning her next trip. We'll find a way to pay for it, she said, her voice tight. I knew Dad's bank job was shaky. Layoffs were rumored, but they never hesitated for Elena. I checked our family share bank account, still linked from when I was a kid, and saw the withdrawals. Thousands for plane tickets, hotels, dance workshops. My tuition, covered by scholarships, and my part-time job at a tech repair shop. I didn't ask for help. I'd learned that lesson. Instead, I coded harder, each line a brick in a wall I was building around myself. The breakthrough came in spring. I submitted Nexus to a regional coding competition, a nerve-wracking leap. The event was in a sterile conference center, all fluorescent lights and cheap coffee. I presented to a panel of bored tech execs, my hands sweaty as I demoed Nexus on a laptop, praying it wouldn't crash. It's predictive, adaptive, I explained, clicking through screens. It learns how you work and optimizes your schedule. One judge, a woman with sharp eyes named Dr. Patel, leaned forward. This is clever, Alex. Rough but clever. What's your plan? I mumbled something about scaling, my voice thin against the room's hum. She handed me her card. Polish it, then call me. That card burned in my pocket as I drove home, rain smearing the windshield. For the first time, someone outside my basement saw what I was building. I didn't tell my parents. They were hosting a welcome-back dinner for Elena, who'd returned for a week. The house smelled of rosemary and wine, the table set with Mom's good china. Elena held court, her stories of European sunsets and standing ovations drowning out the clink of forks. I sat at the table's edge, my mind on Dr. Patel's card, the laptop humming in my room below. Alex, you're so quiet, Elena said, her smile teasing. Still glued to that old computer? Mom laughed, Dad patted my shoulder, and I forced a grin, the scar on my knuckle throbbing. The competition win, third place, $2,000, gave me enough to upgrade Nexus's backend. I rented a cheap server, taught myself cloud integration, and pushed an update that made the app faster, slicker. Downloads climbed to 5,000, then 10,000. Reviews poured in. This app saved my semester. Why isn't this everywhere? I'd read them in the dark, the laptop's glow painting my face, each one a small victory against the family hierarchy. But victory was lonely. I tried sharing it once, over breakfast. Nexus hit 10,000 downloads, I said, my voice steady. Mom looked up from her coffee. That's wonderful, honey. Did you hear Elena's auditioning for a dance troupe in London? Dad nodded, already scrolling Elena's latest post. I swallowed the rest of my words, the cereal in my bowl turning to mush. I met Mara that summer, at a hackathon in Seattle. She was 22, with purple hair and a laugh that cut through the room's nervous energy. We were paired on a team, tasked with building a mock app in 48 hours. Your task manager's cool, she said, peering at my screen. But your UI's clunky. Let me help. By the end, our prototype, a collaborative planner, won first place. Mara didn't sugarcoat her feedback, but she believed in Nexus, saw its bones where others saw a hobby. You've got something real here, she said as we split the $5,000 prize. Don't let it stay small. We started working together, meeting at a coffee shop called Brew and Bite, its walls lined with mismatched art and outlets. Mara was a whirlwind, coding faster than me, sketching designs on napkins, pushing me to think bigger. This could be enterprise level, she said, her pen slashing through my code's inefficiencies. Think teams, not just solo users. The laptop struggled to keep up, but we made it work, debugging through power outages and rain-soaked sprints to the bus stop. Mara became my first real ally, someone who saw me not as Elena's shadow, but as Alex, the guy with a vision. Home was another story. Elena's brief visit stretched into a month, her presence filling every corner. Mom and Dad planned a gala for her, a showcase of her European journey, they called it. They spent thousands, dipping deeper into savings, while I scraped by on repair shop wages and Nexus's meager ad revenue. The gala was at a local art gallery, all chandeliers and champagne. I wasn't invited. It's a small thing, Dad said when I asked, his eyes avoiding mine. You're always so busy with your computer. I stood in the basement that night, the laptop's fan whirring, and felt the weight of being unseen. But Nexus's download counter ticked to 50,000, and I clung to that number like a lifeline. Mara pushed me to move to Seattle. Tacoma's holding you back, she said over coffee, her laptop open to a rental listing. This city's tech scene is alive. Nexus needs to breathe. I hesitated, leaving Mint cutting the last thread to my family. But the basement felt like a tomb. I signed a lease for a tiny apartment in Capitol Hill, $800 a month, and moved with a duffel bag, the laptop, and a folding chair. The first night, rain drumming the roof, I set up the laptop on a cardboard box and coded until dawn. Seattle's skyline glittered outside, a promise of something bigger. Nexus was my bridge out, and I was ready to cross it. The move changed everything. Seattle buzzed with possibility, startups, meetups, coders swapping ideas over craft beer. I landed a part-time gig at a tech startup, debugging their backend, while Mara and I worked on Nexus in every spare moment. Downloads hit 100,000, then 500,000. We added premium features, a subscription model, and revenue trickled in. I called home, hoping to share the milestone. Nexus is making money now, I said, my voice bright. Mom paused, then, that's great, Alex. Elena's back in Europe. She got that London audition. The line went dead in my chest. I hung up, the city's hum filling the silence, and vowed to stop chasing their approval. By 20, Nexus was a small phenomenon. Tech blogs called it the app to watch. Dr. Patel, the judge from the competition, connected me with a venture capitalist, and we secured $50,000 to scale. I hired Mara full-time, and we moved into a rented garage, rain leaking through the roof. We laughed about it, turning buckets into drum sets during breaks. The laptop, now a relic, sat on a shelf, its cracked keys a reminder of where we started. My parents didn't visit, didn't call. Elena's stars still burned brightest, but I was building my own light, one line of code at a time. Seattle's rain was relentless, a curtain of gray that draped my new life in Capitol Hill. My apartment was a shoebox, peeling paint, a mattress on the floor, the old laptop perched on a thrift store desk, but it felt like freedom. The city pulsed with tech dreams, coders and founders swapping ideas in coffee shops, their laptops glowing like beacons. Nexus was my beacon, its download counter climbing past 500,000, each number a brick in the empire I was building from that $50 garage sale gift. Mara and I worked from a rented garage now, its roof leaking into tin buckets, but we didn't care. We were chasing something bigger than ourselves, something my family couldn't see. I was 21, 2 years into Nexus, and the app was no longer just a task manager. We'd added AI-driven features, predictive scheduling, team collaboration tools that made it a favorite for freelancers and small businesses. Mara, now my right hand, pushed me to think enterprise scale. Big companies need this, she said, her purple hair tucked behind her ear as she sketched UI mock-ups on a whiteboard. Think Microsoft, Amazon. They're right here in Seattle. Her ambition was infectious, pulling me out of the basement mindset I'd carried from Tacoma. The old laptop couldn't keep up anymore. We'd upgraded to sleek machines funded by our first investor, but I kept the Dell on a shelf, its cracked keys a reminder of where I'd started. Back in Tacoma, the family hierarchy held firm. Elena was back in Europe, chasing dance auditions, her Instagram a gallery of sunlit studios and cobblestone streets. Mom and Dad sent her money monthly, dipping into savings despite Dad's job cuts at the bank. I saw the transactions in our shared family account. $2,000 here, $3,000 there, while my own bank balance hovered near zero, propped up by Nexus's growing ad revenue and my part-time coding gigs. I didn't ask for help. I'd learned that lesson early. Instead, I poured my energy into the app, each line of code a defiance of their dismissal. Mara and I landed our first big break at a Seattle tech meetup, a packed room of flannel-clad coders and venture capitalists sipping overpriced IPAs. I pitched Nexus, my voice steadier than I felt, the laptop's legacy fueling my words. It's not just about tasks, I said, clicking through a demo. It's about making work feel human, intuitive. A VC named Marcus Lee, all sharp suit and sharper eyes, approached after. "You've got something," he said, handing me a card. "Let's talk funding." A week later, we signed a $200,000 deal, enough to rent a real office, a cramped space in a co-working building, with windows that let in the city's gray light. Mara high-fived me, her grin wide. "We're legit now, Alex." The office smelled of fresh paint and ambition. We hired our first employees, Priya, a UI designer with a knack for color, and Diego, a back-end developer who spoke in rapid-fire tech jargon. The four of us worked late, pizza boxes piling up, as Nexus evolved into a platform. Downloads hit 1 million, and tech blogs took notice. Nexus, the app redefining productivity, one headline read. I framed it, not for ego, but as proof I wasn't invisible anymore. Mara hung it on the office wall, next to a whiteboard scrawled with our next goal, enterprise clients. Home was a different story. I visited Tacoma for Thanksgiving, the house warm with the smell of turkey and Mom's cranberry relish. Elena was back, her dance dreams faltering after a string of rejections. She taught classes at a local studio now, her stories quieter, her smile less radiant. Mom and Dad still orbited her, planning a showcase for her students, their voices bright with hope. "Elena's finding her path," Dad said, carving the turkey. I mentioned Nexus's 1 million downloads, hoping for a flicker of pride. Mom smiled thinly. "That's great, honey. Have you seen Elena's new choreography?" Dad nodded, passing the mashed potatoes. I ate in silence, the scar on my knuckle a faint ache. The disconnect grew. I stopped calling home, letting texts go unanswered. Nexus consumed me. Meetings with clients, late-night bug fixes, Mara's relentless push to scale. We landed our first enterprise deal, a logistics company that used Nexus to streamline their supply chain. The contract was $500,000, enough to double our team. I hired more coders, a marketing lead named Lila who spun our story into press releases that landed us on Forbes' 30 Under 30 radar. The laptop, now a relic in our office lobby, became a talking point. Started with a $50 machine, Lila would tell reporters, and I'd smile, hiding the sting of its origin. Elena's life was unraveling, though my parents didn't admit it. Her posts showed strain, fewer dance photos, more vague quotes about resilience. She'd started dating Julian, a marketing consultant with a slick smile and a startup called VibeWave, which sounded like a buzzword salad. I met him once, at a family dinner in Tacoma. He shook my hand too hard, his eyes scanning me like I was a competitor. "Heard about your app," he said, his tone all teeth. "Cute project." Elena laughed, her hand on his arm, and Mom beamed like he was family already. I nodded, my jaw tight, and changed the subject to Dad's garden. Nexus's growth brought pressure. Investors wanted faster returns, clients demanded new features. Mara and I argued over direction, her pushing for aggressive expansion, me wanting to perfect what we had. "We're not a hobby anymore," she snapped one night, rain lashing the office windows. "We need to act big or get crushed." I knew she was right, but the pace was dizzying. I'd lie awake in my apartment, the city's hum a backdrop to my doubts. Was I enough without my family's validation? The laptop, now a display piece, seemed to watch me, its silence a challenge. A turning point came at 22, when Nexus hit 5 million downloads. We moved to a bigger office, a glass-walled space in downtown Seattle with a view of Puget Sound. Ferries cut through the mist, their horns a low moan, and I'd stand at the window, feeling the weight of what I'd built. Mara became CTO, her purple hair now a sleek bob, her confidence anchoring the team. We added enterprise-grade encryption, team dashboards, and integrations with tools like Slack. Revenue soared to $10 million a year, and we went public in a small IPO, valuing Nexus at $50 million. Headlines called me a self-made prodigy, but the scar on my knuckle reminded me of the cost. I tried sharing the news with my parents, driving to Tacoma one rainy Sunday. The house smelled of cinnamon, Mom baking for Elena's studio fundraiser. Nexus went public, I said, setting a news article on the table. Dad glanced at it, then at Mom. That's big, son, he said, but his eyes drifted to Elena, who was venting about a canceled class. We're so proud of her resilience, Mom added, as if I hadn't spoken. I left early, the article still on the table, the rain washing away any hope of connection. Julian's presence grew in Elena's posts, his arm around her in photos, captions about new ventures. I noticed odd bank transfers in the family account, $10,000 to an LLC called Vibewave Solutions. Dad's job was gone now, his pension stretched thin, yet they kept funding Elena's dreams. I didn't ask questions. I was too busy keeping Nexus afloat. But the seeds of doubt planted themselves, small errors in the code of our family. Mara noticed my distraction. You're carrying them, she said over coffee, her eyes sharp. Let them go. I nodded, but the pull of home was a tide I couldn't outrun. By 23, Nexus was a household name in tech circles. We hired 50 people, opened a second office in San Francisco, and landed a contract with a Fortune 500 retailer. I bought a loft in Capitol Hill, its windows framing the sound's restless waves. The laptop sat in a glass case in the lobby, a museum piece for visitors. But late at night, when the city slept, I'd trace its cracks and wonder why my family's love was a language I couldn't code. The answer was coming, but it would take a betrayal to make it clear. Seattle's skyline pierced the fog like fingers grasping at clarity, a metaphor I clung to as Nexus reached new heights. At 24, the company was a force, 100 employees, offices in Seattle and San Francisco, revenue hitting $50 million. The loft I bought overlooked Puget Sound, its waves a restless mirror to my thoughts. Mara, now a co-founder in all but name, ran operations with fierce precision, her office a whirlwind of whiteboards and coffee mugs. We'd expanded Nexus into AI analytics, helping companies predict workflow bottlenecks before they hit. Investors called us the next big thing, but I knew the truth. Every success was built on the scar of my family's indifference. The old laptop sat in a glass case in the lobby, a tourist attraction for visitors. From garage sale to empire, Lila, our marketing lead, spun the story in press releases. Reporters ate it up, but I rarely mentioned the favoritism that fueled it. Home was a distant echo now, Tacoma a place I visited only for holidays. Elena's dance career had stalled completely, a knee injury sidelined her, and she'd pivoted to creative consulting, whatever that meant. Julian was her constant, his Vibewave startup a vague mix of marketing and events. My parents adored him, calling him family material in their rare calls to me. Those calls were strained, laced with hints of financial trouble. Dad's pension wasn't enough, Mom's art classes dried up, and Elena's ventures burned through cash. I sent anonymous checks, $5,000 here, $10,000 there, through a foundation Nexus set up for community support. I didn't want thanks. I wanted peace. But peace was elusive. I'd scroll the family shared calendar, still linked from old times, and see orange blocks labeled Family Strategy. No locations, always on weekends. Elena was meticulous with details. Every dance class pinned with an address. But these were blanks, voids that hummed with unspoken plans. One night, after a grueling board meeting, I dug deeper. The family bank account showed transfers to Vibewave LLC, sums that matched Dad's dwindling savings. Julian's LinkedIn painted him as a visionary, but his company's site was slick and empty, promising immersive experiences without substance. I mentioned it to Mara over late-night tacos in the office kitchen. Sounds shady, she said, wiping salsa from her chin. Why are your parents funding it? I shrugged, but the scar on my knuckle throbbed, a warning I ignored. The invitation came via email, subject, 35th anniversary celebration. My parents' milestone, a waterfront venue in Tacoma, hosted by Elena. Bring someone special, Mom wrote, as if she knew my dating life beyond casual coffee meetups. The fine print listed Julian as co-host, his name bolded like a brand. I RSVP'd yes. Mara is my +1. Moral support, she joked, but her eyes were serious. Don't let them drag you down. The venue is elegant, polished oak floors reflecting string lights, the air thick with lavender and sea salt. Elena greeted us at the door, her dress shimmering, Julian's arm around her waist. "Alex, you made it," she said, her hug brief. Mom and Dad pulled me into embraces that felt rehearsed, their eyes scanning the room for Elena's next move. Julian shook my hand, his grip firm. "Big man in tech now, huh? We could use some advice on VibeWave." His smile was transaction, and I nodded politely, my stomach twisting. Dinner was a parade of toasts, to my parents' enduring love, Elena's grace, Julian's ambition. My mention was brief. "Alex is doing well with his little app." The table clapped, but I slid back to Elena, who spun tales of her European days like they were fresh. I sipped wine, noticing Julian's hand on her knee, her watch glinting with a notification. "Harbor Lights, 9 p.m. I blinked, the words registering. Harbor Lights was a yacht club, not a casual spot. I excused myself to the restroom, pulling up the family calendar. Orange blocks dotted the months, labeled Team Offsite. No addresses. Times matching Julian's post from docks and beaches, Elena tagged subtly. Back at the table, Julian pitched VibeWave to Dad, his voice smooth. "It's a lifestyle brand. Events, retreats. With Elena's creativity, it'll explode." Mom nodded eagerly. "Perfect for her talents." I interjected mildly. "What's the business model?" Julian waved it off. "Details later. Family first, right?" Elena laughed too brightly, and I saw the cracks. Her eyes tired, Dad's smile forced. The scar on my knuckle itched, a sign I was onto something. That night, in my hotel room, the sound waves crashing outside, I dove in. Mara joined via video call, her face lit by her laptop. "Show me," she said. I shared screenshots, bank transfers, calendar voids, Julian's vague company filings. We traced VibeWave to a shell LLC, investors listed as anonymous partners. "They're using your parents' money," Mara whispered. "And name-dropping Nexus, I bet." A quick search showed Julian's emails to VCs, claiming connections to tech leaders like Alex Thorne. My name, leveraged without permission. Rage simmered, but I channeled it into action. I called Nora, a lawyer friend from a Nexus networking event. "It's fraud potential," she said, her voice crisp. "Gather more evidence. Protect yourself." I forwarded the screenshots, the calendar anomalies, the bank alerts. Back in Seattle, the office hummed with normalcy, but I was distracted, debugging not just code but family lies. Mara noticed. "You're not alone," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "We built this together." The yacht event was Elena's brand launch for VibeWave, a glitzy affair on the Starlight, moored at Harbor Lights. Invites went to influencers, potential investors, my parents beaming on deck. I arrived unannounced, my name opening doors. The boat glittered under lights, champagne flowing. Elena pitched from a makeshift stage, Julian at her side. VibeWave is about connection, experiences that last, she said, her voice echoing over the water. I waited, USB drive in pocket, heart pounding. When Q&A opened, I stood. "What about the funding?" I asked, voice steady. Elena faltered. "Family investments." Julian cut in, smirking. I plugged in the drive, projecting the evidence. Transfers, emails, the LLC's empty shell. The crowd murmured, "Phone's out." "This isn't a brand," I said. "It's a scam." Elena's face crumbled. Julian bolted below deck. My parents aged in seconds. Investors fled, whispers turning to accusations. I didn't stay. Walking the pier, salt air sharp, I felt the weight lift. Nora filed papers the next day, a cease and desist, freezing VibeWave. Julian skipped town. Elena's reputation tanked, my parents' savings gone. They called, apologies tearful, but I let voicemails pile up. The scar on my knuckle faded, a remnant of old pain. Nexus thrived and scathed. We launched a nonprofit arm, coding camps for overlooked kids. At 25, I met Sam, a teacher with warm eyes and a laugh like sunlight. We dated slowly, building trust over park walks and shared dreams. The loft became home, windows framing a future I chose. But cracks lingered. Elena's messages begged forgiveness. Julian's shadow loomed in rumors. I knew the story wasn't over, but for now, I built code, relationships, a life beyond the hierarchy. The Seattle dawn was a bruise of gray and gold, the kind of light that made promises it couldn't keep. I stood at my loft's window, Puget Sound stretching like a canvas of doubt, and traced the faint scar on my knuckle. Nexus was soaring, $75 million in revenue, a staff of 150, headlines calling us the future of work. The old laptop, now a relic in our office lobby, was a story journalists loved, from garage sale to tech empire. But the triumph felt hollow, overshadowed by the betrayal I'd uncovered on that yacht. Elena's scam, Julian's lies, my parents' blind complicity. It was a code I couldn't debug, a wound I couldn't close. Back in the office, Mara was a storm of focus, her laptop open to Nexus's latest analytics dashboard. "We're trending up," she said, pointing to a graph of user growth. "But you're trending down, Alex. Talk to me." I hesitated, the weight of the screenshots heavy in my phone. I showed her the folder, bank transfers, VibeWave shady filings, Julian's emails name-dropping Nexus. Her eyes narrowed. "They're not just leeching off your parents. They're using you." She was right. Julian had pitched investors with my name, claiming I was a silent partner. The audacity burned, but what hurt more was my parents' silence, their willingness to let Elena's star outshine the truth. I called Nora, our lawyer, from the office's glass-walled conference room, the city's skyline a muted backdrop. "It's fraud," she said, her voice a steel beam over the phone. "The LLC's a shell, and those transfers are reckless at best, criminal at worst. We can freeze their assets, maybe recover your parents' savings." I told her prepare, but hold off. I needed more than legal wins. I needed to understand why my family had chosen Elena's lies over me. The scar on my knuckle throbbed, a reminder of the basement days when I'd punched a wall to feel something other than invisible. The next week was a blur of work and investigation. Nexus demanded my focus, client meetings, a new feature rollout, a pitch to a tech giant eyeing our AI. But late nights, I dug into VibeWave. Mara helped, her coding skills turning to digital sleuthing. We found a hidden social media account Julian ran, posts boasting about big investors and tech connections. One photo showed Elena at a yacht party, her smile tight, Julian's arm possessive. The caption read, "Family backing, game-changing moves." My parents commented hearts, oblivious to the scam swallowing their savings. I drove to Tacoma on a rainy Saturday, the highway slick with memories. The house hadn't changed. Same sagging porch, same mantle crowded with Elena's relics. Mom greeted me with a hug, her eyes tired. Dad was in the garage, tinkering with a lawnmower. "Good to see you, son," he said, wiping grease from his hands. "Heard your company's doing big things." I nodded, waiting for the inevitable pivot. It came fast. "Elena's working on something special with Julian," Mom said, setting out coffee. "A lifestyle brand. They could use your advice, Alex." Her voice was hopeful, blind to the truth. I didn't confront them. Instead, I asked about VibeWave, keeping my tone neutral. Dad shrugged. "It's Elena's dream. We're helping out." Mom showed me a glossy brochure, VibeWave's logo, promises of transformative events. I recognized the design from a Nexus competitor's failed pitch, recycled by Julian. "Looks expensive," I said, probing. Mom's smile faltered. "We're managing." But the bank alerts I'd seen told a different story. $50,000 gone in 6 months, their retirement gutted. Back in Seattle, I met Nora at her office, a sleek space overlooking the Bay Bridge. She spread the evidence on her desk, screenshots, filings, emails. "This is enough for a lawsuit," she said, tapping a pen. "But it'll hurt your parents." They signed off on the transfers. I nodded, the weight of it sinking in. I didn't want to destroy them, but I couldn't let Elena and Julian keep using my name. "Send a warning," I said. "No charges yet. Just make them stop." Nora drafted a cease and desist, a legal flair to scare Julian off. The response came fast. Elena called, her voice shaking through my phone. "Alex, why are you doing this? It's just business." I heard Julian in the background, his tone sharp. "Tell him we'll talk." I kept it cold. "Stop using my name, Elena. Or Nora makes it public." She hung up, and I sat in my loft, the sound waves a restless pulse. Mara texted, "You okay?" I wasn't, but I typed back, "Getting there." Nexus kept me grounded. We launched a nonprofit arm, Nexus Future, to teach coding to kids from tough backgrounds. I visited our first camp in Seattle's South Side, a community center with flickering lights. The kids were like me at 18, quiet, hungry for a chance. One, a 15-year-old named Jamal, showed me his first app, a glitchy game about space pirates. "It's not much," he mumbled. I grinned. "It's a start. Keep going." His shy smile mirrored mine from the basement days, and I felt the scar on my knuckles soften, just a little. Elena's messages grew desperate, texts begging me to talk this out, emails promising to explain everything. I ignored them, focusing on Nexus and the kids. But one night, scrolling the family calendar, I saw a new orange block. Investor Gala, Harbor Lights. No address, but I knew the venue. A yacht club where Nexus had catered an event. Julian's post confirmed it. Photos of him and Elena on a dock. Caption, "Big moves coming." My parents liked the post, their digital hearts a stab. I call Mara. "They're not stopping," I said, voice tight. She sighed. "Then we go bigger. Crash their party, Alex." I hesitated, the idea reckless but tempting. Nora agreed to prep legal backup, just in case. The gala was in a week, and I spent it gathering more. Email chains where Julian pitched VibeWave as Nexus-affiliated, bank records showing my parents' last savings drained. The evidence was a tower, each piece a brick I'd used to topple their lies. The night before the gala, I stood in my loft, the city's lights smearing the window. The laptop, now a display piece, seemed to watch me, its cracks a map of my journey. I thought of Jamal, his game, his hope. I thought of the basement, Elena's laughter, my parents' blind pride. The scar on my knuckle was barely visible now, but the ache lingered. I wasn't fighting for revenge. I was fighting for truth, for the kid who coded through pain, for the empire I'd built despite them. The gala loomed, a reckoning on water. I packed the USB drive, my suit pressed, my resolve steel. Mara would be there, Nora on speed dial. The sound whispered outside, its waves a reminder. Truth breaks through, no matter how deep the tide. The air at Harbor Lights Yacht Club was sharp with salt and ambition, the kind of place where wealth dressed up as elegance. The Starlight, a sleek vessel moored at the dock, glittered under strings of fairy lights, its deck crowded with influencers in sequin dresses and investors in tailored suits. I stood at the pier's edge, my own suit crisp but understated, the USB drive in my pocket heavy as a stone. Mara was beside me, her eyes scanning the crowd like a coder debugging a program. "You sure about this, Alex?" she asked, her voice low but steady. I nodded, the scar on my knuckle a faint pulse. This wasn't just about exposing Elena and Julian's scam. It was about reclaiming the space I'd been denied in my own family. Nexus was at its peak, $100 million in revenue, 200 employees, a second office in Austin. The old laptop, now a legend in our lobby, had become a symbol of what grit could build. But tonight, it wasn't about Nexus. It was about the basement, the $50 gift, the years of being an afterthought. Elena's brand launch for VibeWave was the stage, and I was done being a shadow in her spotlight. We boarded the yacht, my name enough to bypass the guest list check. The deck hummed with chatter, champagne flutes clinking, a DJ spinning low beats. Elena stood at the bow, her white dress catching the light, Julian at her side like a self-appointed king. My parents were there, too. Mom's smile strained, Dad's shoulders hunched as if carrying the weight of their drained savings. They didn't see me at first, their eyes fixed on Elena as she worked the crowd, her voice bright with promises of transformative experiences. Julian handed out glossy brochures, VibeWave's logo splashed across them like a warning. Mara squeezed my arm. "They're selling air," she whispered, nodding at an investor flipping through the brochure. I recognized him. Marcus Lee, the VC who'd funded Nexus's early days. His brow furrowed as Julian pitched, and I knew he sensed the same emptiness I'd found in VibeWave's filings. The evidence on my USB drive, bank transfers, fake investor emails, Julian's misuse of my name, felt like a loaded weapon. I planned to wait for the Q&A, but the sight of my parents clapping for Elena's lies pushed me forward. Elena took the microphone, her voice echoing over the water. Vibe Wave is about connection, she said, gesturing to the crowd. It's about creating moments that matter, backed by family and vision. The word family hit like a jab. I stepped to the edge of the stage, raising a hand. Can I say something? The crowd turned, murmurs rippling. Elena's smile froze. Julian's eyes narrowed. But they couldn't stop me without looking guilty. Go ahead, Alex, Elena said, her tone too sweet. I plugged the USB into the projector, a screen flickering to life behind her. Vibe Wave's funding, I started, my voice steady, comes from my parents' retirement savings. Over $100,000, gone to an LLC with no real product. The first slide showed bank statements, redacted but clear. Gasps spread like a wave. They've used my company's name, Nexus, to lure investors, claiming I'm a partner. Another slide, Julian's emails, my name in bold. Marcus Lee's face hardened, his phone already out. Elena stammered. This is a misunderstanding. Julian tried to laugh, his charm cracking. Alex, let's talk privately. But the crowd was shifting, investors whispering, influencers filming. I clicked to the final slide. A Vibe Wave contract, its terms a maze of jargon hiding nothing but debt. This isn't a brand, I said, looking at Elena, then my parents. It's a scam. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face grayed, and Elena's eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. The yacht felt smaller, the air thick with judgment. Marcus Lee approached me as I stepped back. I trusted you. Alex, he said quietly. This explains why their pitch fell off. He walked away, already calling his team. Julian bolted below deck, Elena following, her heels clattering. My parents stood frozen, the crowd's eyes on them now. I didn't wait for their excuses. I walked off the starlight, Mara on my side, the piers wood creaking under her steps. The sound's waves lapped at the shore, a rhythm of release. Back in my loft, I sat in the dark, the city's lights smearing the window. Nora called an hour later. Vibe Wave's done, she said. Investors pulled out, and I've frozen the LLC's accounts. Your parents' money might be gone, though. I nodded, though she couldn't see. The scar on my knuckle was barely visible now, but the ache lingered, not for the money, but for the family I'd never had. Elena's text flooded in. Why, Alex? We could have fixed this. I didn't reply. Julian vanished from social media, his accounts wiped clean. My parents left voicemails, their voices broken, but I let them stack, unanswered. Nexus was my anchor. The next day, I walked into the office, where Mara had rallied the team for a new project, a collaboration tool for remote workers, a response to the growing gig economy. This is what we do, she said, her grin fierce. We build, no matter what. The kids at Nexus Future sent me a video from their coding camp, their faces lit with pride as they showed off apps they'd built. Jamal, the 15-year-old with the Space Pirate game, had added a multiplayer feature. Thanks for believing in us, he said, and I felt the weight of my family's betrayal lighten, just a fraction. But the cracks weren't gone. Elena showed up at my loft a week later, unannounced, her eyes red. You ruined everything, she said, standing in my doorway. Vibe Wave was my chance to be something. I didn't invite her in. You used Mom and Dad's money, Elena. You used my name. She flinched, then softened. We're family, Alex. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked at her, the sister I'd once idolized, and saw the hierarchy clear as ever. Family doesn't lie, I said, closing the door. Nora pushed the legal case forward, recovering scraps of my parents' savings, but the damage was done. Dad took a part-time job at a hardware store. Mom stopped teaching art. They called, offering apologies, but their words felt like echoes of Elena's excuses. I focused on Nexus, on the kids, on the life I was building. Mara introduced me to Sam, a high school teacher who volunteered at our coding camps. His laugh was warm, his questions gentle, and our first coffee date stretched into hours, the city's rain a soft backdrop. The sound kept whispering, its waves a reminder of what I'd walked away from. The yacht was a turning point, not just for exposing Vibe Wave, but for freeing me from the need to prove myself to a family that never saw me. Nexus was my proof, my empire, built from a $50 laptop and a heart that refused to break. But the story wasn't over. Elena's shadow lingered, and I knew the next chapter would test me in ways I couldn't yet see. The Seattle skyline shimmered through my loft's window, a lattice of glass and steel that felt like a blueprint for my new life. Nexus was a titan now, $120 million in revenue, offices in 3 cities, a team of 250 humming with purpose. The old laptop, encased in glass in our Seattle headquarters, drew curious glances from visitors, its cracked keys a silent testament to what grit could forge. But the victory on the Starlight yacht, exposing Elena and Julian's scam, didn't erase the ache. My parents' broken voicemails, Elena's desperate texts, they piled up like debris from a storm I'd walked through but hadn't escaped. Mara was my anchor, her office a chaos of energy and whiteboards scrawled with Nexus's next phase, a global expansion, targeting Europe and Asia. "We're not just an app anymore," she said, tossing a marker across the desk. "We're a movement." Her confidence steadied me, but late at night, when the city slept, I'd scroll through the family's shared calendar, now empty of orange blocks. The silence was louder than their lies had been, a reminder of the family I'd lost to their own choices. Nora, our lawyer, closed the VibeWave case with ruthless efficiency. The LLC was dissolved, investors refunded what little remained, but my parents' savings were gone. $150,000 sunk into Elena's mirage. Julian had vanished, his digital footprint erased, though rumors placed him in Miami, pitching another hollow venture. Elena moved back to Tacoma, teaching dance at a community center, her social media dark except for occasional posts about healing. My parents called weekly, their voices heavy with regret. "We didn't know, Alex," Mom said in one message. "We thought we were helping her." I didn't reply. The scar on my knuckle, now a faint line, reminded me of the basement days when their love was a currency I couldn't earn. Nexus Future, our nonprofit arm, became my refuge. The coding camps for underserved kids were growing, Seattle, San Francisco, now Portland. I spent weekends at the community centers, watching kids like Jamal, the 15-year-old with the Space Pirate game, build apps that sparked with possibility. "You think I could do this for real?" he asked once, his eyes wide as he showed me a new feature. I grinned, remembering my own basement dreams. "You already are." Those moments dulled the pain of my family's betrayal. Each kid's success a brick in a new kind of empire, one built on belief, not blood. Sam, the teacher I'd met through Mara, was becoming a constant. Our coffee dates turned into long walks through Golden Gate Park, his questions about my work cutting through my defenses. "You built Nexus from nothing," he said one evening, the park's fog curling around us. "What drives you now?" I hesitated, the scar on my knuckle tingling. "Proving I'm enough," I admitted, the words raw. He nodded, his hand brushing mine, and I felt a warmth I hadn't known I was missing. But the past wasn't done with me. Elena showed up at the Nexus office unannounced, her face pale, her dancers poised frayed. "We need to talk," she said, standing in the lobby, eyes darting to the laptop in its case. Mara, at my side, crossed her arms. "5 minutes," I said, leading Elena to a conference room. The glass walls felt like a cage, Seattle's skyline a silent witness. "I'm sorry," she started, her voice small. "Julia manipulated me. I thought VibeWave was real. I studied her, the sister who'd once been my idol, now diminished by her own choices." "You use Mom and Dad's money," I said. "You use my name." She flinched, tears welling. "I wanted to be something, Alex. Like you." The confession stung, but it didn't absolve her. "You could have built something real," I said. "Instead, you lied." She left without another word, her footsteps echoing in the lobby. My parents' next call was harder. Dad's voice cracked as he spoke. "We're selling the house, Alex. To cover debts." Mom added, "We didn't mean to hurt you." I stared at the sound, its waves churning like my thoughts. "You chose Elena's lies over me," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm done carrying that." I hung up, the silence heavy but freeing. Mara found me later, her eyes soft. "You did the right thing," she said. I nodded, but the scar on my knuckle ached, a reminder that closure wasn't clean. Nexus pushed forward. We landed a contract with a European tech firm, our first step across the Atlantic. The office buzzed with new hires, coders from Berlin and Tokyo, their ideas sparking like code compiling. I threw myself into work, but Sam's presence grounded me. He invited me to his classroom, where his students, high schoolers with dreams as big as mine had been, demoed apps they'd built with Nexus Future's tools. One girl, Mia, showed me a budgeting app for teens. "It's for kids like me, who don't have much," she said. I saw myself in her, the basement kid with a $50 laptop, and promised to mentor her project. Elena tried reaching out again, a letter this time, handwritten and raw. "I was jealous," she wrote. "You built something real, and I chased shadows." I read it in my loft. The sound waves a soft roar. I didn't reply, but I kept the letter, a relic of a sister I might never know again. My parents' house sold, and they moved to a small apartment, their calls less frequent. I sent another anonymous check through Nexus Future, not for them, but for the life I'd left behind. Sam and I grew closer. Our dates now dinners at his place, his cooking filling the air with warmth. "You're more than Nexus," he said one night, stirring a pot of curry. "You're the guy who shows up for those kids, for me." His words landed like rain on parched ground, and I kissed him under the kitchen's soft light, the scar on my knuckle forgotten for a moment. But shadows lingered. A tech blog reported rumors of Julian resurfacing, pitching a new startup in California, name-dropping Nexus again. Mara flagged it, her eyes sharp. "He's not done," she said. I nodded, the USB drive from a yacht still in my desk drawer, a reminder that evidence was my strength. Nora was ready to act, but I wanted to face him first, not for revenge, but to end the cycle. The next challenge came unexpectedly. Nexus Future's Portland camp faced funding cuts, threatening to close. Jamal and Mia's faces flashed in my mind, their dreams at stake. I called a board meeting, pitching a new fund to keep the camps alive. "This is why we built Nexus," I said, my voice firm. "To give kids a chance like I had." The board agreed, and we raised $1 million, enough to expand to Chicago. The kids sent a video, their cheers echoing through the office, and I felt the weight of my family's betrayal lift, replaced by a purpose I could touch. Sam joined me at the Portland camp's relaunch, his hand in mine, as we watched kids code under string lights. "You're building something bigger than an app," he said, his smile warm. I nodded, the sounds waved a distant hum, and knew he was right. The ruins of my family lay behind me, but ahead was a life I'd chosen, brick by brick. Seattle's fog rolled in thick, cloaking the city in a hush that mirrored my own unease. Nexus was a juggernaut. $140 million in revenue, offices in 4 cities, our AI now powering workflows for global firms. The loft I called home framed Puget Sound's restless waves, a view that once felt like freedom, but now carried a faint warning. The scar on my knuckle was nearly gone, a ghost of the basement days, but new shadows were stirring. Julian's name had resurfaced, a tech blog whispering of his latest venture in Silicon Valley, and with it, the old ache of betrayal flared. He was using Nexus's name again, a parasite clinging to my empire. The office buzzed with its usual rhythm, coders typing, Mara barking orders over a video call with her Tokyo team. She dyed her hair blue, a signal of her restless energy. "We're killing it," she said, tossing me a coffee. "But you're distracted." "Spill." I showed her the blog post. Julian Carter, formerly of VibeWave, pitches next-gen solutions, citing ties to Nexus founder Alex Thorne. Mara's jaw tightened. "He's got nerve." "What's the play?" I didn't know yet, but the USB drive from the yacht, still on my desk, felt like a loaded gun. Nora, our lawyer, was already on it. "He's treading on thin ice," she said over lunch at a downtown cafe, her tablet open to Julian's new filings. NextGen's a rebrand of VibeWave's playbook. Vague promises, no product. "He's name-dropping you to get VC attention." She slid a cease and desist draft across the table. "This stops him cold, but it won't undo the damage to your parents." I nodded, the memory of their drained savings a weight I couldn't shake. "Send it," I said, "and dig deeper. I want to know who's backing him." Home was no longer a word I tied to Tacoma. My parents' calls had slowed to a trickle, their voices heavy with the shame of losing their house. Elena's texts were sporadic, her dance studio struggling, her posts muted. I'd sent another anonymous check through Nexus Future, enough to cover their rent for a year, but I kept my distance. The family I'd built, Sam, Mara, the kids at our coding camps, was my anchor now. Sam's presence was steady, our evenings filled with his cooking and quiet talks about the future. "You're carrying too much," he said one night, his hand on mine as we sat on my couch. The sounds waves a soft roar. "Let them go." I wanted to, but Julian's return was pulling me back. The blog post wasn't the only warning. An email from Marcus Lee, our early investor, landed in my inbox. "Heard about NextGen. Julian's claiming you're advising him." "True." I replied immediately. "Absolutely not. Legal action pending." Marcus called minutes later. "I trust you, Alex," he said, his voice calm but firm. "But he's pitching to my network. Shut down fast." The urgency hit hard. Nexus's reputation, my reputation, was at stake. I called Mara, and we spent the night in the office, tracing Julian's moves. His new site was slick, filled with buzzwords: AI, blockchain, disruptive synergy, but no substance. A LinkedIn post showed him at a San Francisco mixer, Elena at his side, her smile strained. Elena. The sight of her stung more than Julian's audacity. She'd apologized, begged for forgiveness, but now she was back in his orbit, propping up another lie. I texted her, "Why are you with him again?" Her reply came hours later. "It's not what you think. I'm trying to fix things." I didn't respond. Mara, looking over my shoulder, snorted. "She's fixing nothing. She's complicit." I nodded, but the scar on my knuckle pulsed, a reminder of the sister I'd once wanted to save. Nexus Future kept me grounded. The Portland camp was thriving, and we'd launched a new one in Chicago. I flew out for the opening, Sam at my side, his presence a balm. The kids, teens from rough neighborhoods, showed off apps they'd built, a food bank tracker, a study planner for foster kids. Jamal, now 16, had refined his space pirate game, adding a storyline that made me laugh. "You inspired this," he said, shy but proud. I hugged him, the weight of my family's mess fading in the face of his light. Back in Seattle, Nora uncovered more. Julian's investors included a shady VC with ties to offshore accounts. "He's playing bigger this time," she said, her office walls lined with legal books like armor. "But he's sloppy. We can bury him." She drafted a public statement, ready to release if Julian pushed further. I hesitated, not for him, but for Elena. Was she a victim or a player? The answer came at a tech conference in San Francisco, where I'd been invited to keynote. Julian was there, uninvited, working the room. I spotted him across the ballroom, Elena beside him, her eyes avoiding mine. I took the stage, my speech about Nexus's journey, basement to empire, drawing applause. But my focus was on Julian, his smirk as he whispered to a VC. After, I approached Mara on my flank. "Stop using my name," I said, voice low but steel. He laughed, all charm. "Just business, Alex. No hard feelings." Elena stepped forward, her voice shaky. "He's helping me rebuild. You don't understand." I looked at her, the sister who'd once been my world. "I understand enough," I said, walking away. The conference buzzed with rumors of NextGen's shaky foundation. Nora's cease and desist hit the next day, and Julian's investors pulled out. His site went offline, his socials quiet. Elena called, sobbing. "You've ruined me again," she said. I didn't argue, didn't console. "You chose him," I said, and hung up. My parents' next voicemail was softer, pleading. "We're sorry, Alex. We didn't see it." I saved it, unanswered, and turned to Sam, who was waiting with dinner and a question. "What now?" he asked, his eyes warm. "We keep building," I said, the sounds waves a steady pulse outside. Nexus Future expanded, camps now in 5 cities. Mia, the teen with the budgeting app, won a scholarship to MIT, her thank you note framed in my office. Sam moved into the loft, his books mingling with mine, our life a quiet rebellion against the past. But Julian's shadow wasn't gone. A late-night email from an unknown address hinted at a new venture, this time in New York, and Elena's name was on it. Mara saw it first. "They're like roaches," she said, her voice grim. I nodded, the USB drive away in my drawer. The fight wasn't over, but I was ready. Scar faded, empire strong, family chosen. The Seattle skyline glowed under a rare, clear night, stars piercing the dark like lines of code in a clean program. Nexus was untouchable now. $150 million in revenue, offices in 6 cities, our AI reshaping how teams worked worldwide. The loft, once a bare refuge, was a home now, filled with Sam's books, our shared plants, and a warmth that felt like a victory over the basement days. The old laptop, still in its glass case at headquarters, was a pilgrimage site for new hires, its cracks a story of what could rise from nothing. But the scar on my knuckle, now just a whisper of a line, tingled with the news of Julian's latest scheme, a New York startup, Elena's name tied to it like a ghost that wouldn't fade. Mara caught the email first, forwarded from an anonymous tipster. NextGen Solutions relaunches in NYC, backed by Elena Thorne. The attached screenshot showed a pitch deck, my name sprinkled through it like bait. They don't learn, Mara said, her blue hair catching the office light as she paced. We crush this, Alex. No mercy. I nodded, but the weight of Elena's involvement hit harder than Julian's audacity. She'd apologized, begged for forgiveness, yet here she was, tethered to another lie. I called Nora, our lawyer, who was ready with a plan. We've got them dead to rights, she said, her voice ablade. Public exposure, legal hammer. Your call. I hesitated, not for Julian, but for the faint hope that Elena could be saved. Sam saw it in me, sitting across from me at our kitchen table, his eyes steady. You can't fix her, he said, stirring his tea, but you can protect what you've built. He was right. Nexus wasn't just an app. It was a lifeline for kids like Jamal and Mia, for employees like Mara and Priya, for a future I'd carve from a $50 laptop. I told Nora to prepare a public statement, but I wanted to face Elena first, to see if the sister I'd once loved was still there. The New York conference was a glittering affair, a tech summit in a Manhattan hotel with chandeliers like frozen stars. I flew in alone, leaving Sam and Mara in Seattle to keep Nexus running. Julian was there, working the room in a tailored suit, Elena at his side in a sleek black dress, her dancers poised masking the strain in her eyes. I watched from the edges, my keynote slot the next day, giving me access. Julian's pitch was slick, NextGen as the future of collaboration, with Nexus's name dropped casually, as if I'd endorsed it. The crowd lapped it up, VCs nodding, unaware of the fraud beneath the polish. I approached during a break, catching Elena alone at a coffee bar. What? I asked, my voice low but sharp. She flinched, her coffee trembling. I thought I could make it right, she said, eyes darting. Julian said we'd rebuild, help Mom and Dad. I shook my head. He's using you again, Elena. And you're letting him. She looked away, her jaw tight. You don't get it, Alex. You've always had Nexus. I had nothing. The words stung, but they didn't sway me. You had a choice, I said, walking away as Julian approached, his smirk faltering when he saw me. That night, in my hotel room, the city's lights pulsing outside, I finalized a statement with Nora. It was brutal but factual. NextGen's lies, Julian's fraud, Elena's complicity, all backed by the evidence we gathered. I sent it to tech blogs, knowing it would hit before my keynote. The next morning, the conference buzzed with whispers, phones lighting up with the news. NextGen exposed, fraudulent ties to Nexus. Julian's session was canceled, VCs pulling out, Elena nowhere in sight. I took the stage, speaking about Nexus's mission, empowering people, not exploiting them. The applause was thunderous, but my eyes scanned for Elena, hoping for a glimpse of regret. She was gone. Back in Seattle, Nexus Future's camps were thriving. I visited the Chicago site, where Mia, now 17, demoed her budgeting app, now live on app stores. Because of you, she said, her smile wide. Jamal's game was gaining traction, too, a small hit among indie gamers. Their success was my fuel, a reminder that my empire wasn't just profit but purpose. Sam joined me at the camp, his hand in mine as we watched kids code under string lights. You're changing lives, he said, his voice warm. I nodded, the sound's waves a distant echo, carrying away the last of my family's shadow. Elena's final message came a week later. A letter slipped under my loft's door. I'm leaving New York, she wrote. Julian's gone. I'm sorry, Alex. I lost myself. I read it twice, the scar on my knuckle silent. I didn't reply, but I kept the letter, a relic of a sister I might never know again. My parents called, their voices frail. We're proud of you, Dad said, the words late but heavy. I thanked them, but the line stayed cold. They'd chosen Elena's lies too long to bridge the gap. Nexus pushed forward, our global reach expanding to London and Singapore. Mara was relentless, her vision driving us to new heights. Sam and I planned a future, maybe a house, maybe more. The loft was home, its windows framing a life I'd chosen, not inherited. But Julian's name lingered in whispers, a new rumor of a startup in Miami. Mara flagged it, her eyes sharp. "We're ready," she said. I nodded, the USB drive still on my desk, a reminder that truth was my weapon. The kids at Nexus Future sent a video for my 30th birthday, their faces glowing as they thanked me for their coding journey. Jamal's game was now a small hit, Mia's app helping teens across the country. "You saw us," they said, and I felt the scar on my knuckle vanish, replaced by a warmth that felt like family. Sam kissed me under the loft's soft lights, his smile my anchor. The empire stood, not just in revenue or headlines, but in the lives we'd touched, the future we'd built. The Seattle dawn painted the loft in hues of amber and steel, the Puget Sound stretching beyond my window, like a promise kept. Nexus stood as an empire, $150 million in revenue, offices in 7 cities, its AI reshaping how the world worked. The old laptop, enshrined in its glass case at headquarters, was more than a relic now. It was a beacon for those who dared to build from nothing. The scar on my knuckle had faded to a whisper, a memory of basement nights and family betrayals. Julian's latest scheme in Miami had fizzled under Nora's legal pressure, his name fading from tech circles like a bad line of code. Elena was silent, her dance studio in Tacoma a quiet struggle, her letters unanswered in my drawer. My parents' calls had stopped, their new life in a small apartment a world away from mine. Yet, as I stood in the loft I shared with Sam, his books lining our shelves, I knew the story wasn't about them anymore. It was about the family I'd chosen. Nexus Future was my heart's work. The coding camps had grown to 10 cities, from Chicago to Miami, each one a haven for kids like I'd been. Overlooked, hungry for a chance. Jamal, now 17, had launched his space pirate game on Steam, its quirky story earning a cult following. Mia's budgeting app was a staple for teens, her MIT scholarship a testament to her grit. I visited the Seattle camp weekly, watching kids code under flickering community center lights, their dreams as tangible as the lines they wrote. "You gave us this," Mia said at a camp showcase, her app demoed to a crowd of donors. I shook my head. "You built it," I told her, the warmth in my chest a stark contrast to the cold of my family's past. Sam was my anchor, his presence a steady rhythm in the chaos of success. We'd bought a house in Queen, and a craftsman with wide windows and a garden where he planted herbs, his laughter filling the air as we cooked together. "You're more than Nexus," he said one evening, chopping basil, his eyes soft. "You're the guy who shows up, every time." His words landed like rain on parched ground, washing away the last of the basement's damp weight. We talked about the future, a dog, maybe kids, a life rooted in choice, not obligation. The scar on my knuckle was gone now, its ache replaced by the warmth of his hand in mine. Mara remained the fire that drove Nexus. Her blue hair was a bob now, her office a war room of ambition. We'd launched a new platform, Nexus Connect, a tool for remote teams to collaborate seamlessly across time zones. It was a hit, pushing our valuation to $200 million. "We're global, Alex," she said, grinning over a late-night pizza in the office. "From a $50 laptop to this." She gestured at the skyline, Seattle's lights a constellation of our triumphs. But her eyes sharpened when a new rumor surfaced. Julian, back in Los Angeles, pitching yet another startup. "He's a virus," she said, pulling up a blog post. "We end this for good." Nora was ready, her legal team a machine of precision. "He's using a new alias," she said over a video call, her screen showing filings for Synergy Labs. "No mention of you this time, but Elena's name is on the board." My heart sank, not for surprise but for the faint hope I'd held for my sister. I called her, the first time in months. "Why, Elena?" I asked, my voice steady. She was quiet, then. "I thought I could rebuild." "I'm sorry, Alex." Her voice broke, but I'd heard it before. "Stop chasing his lies," I said, and hung up. Nora's team shut Synergy Labs down before it launched, its investors spooked by the vibe wave fallout. Julian vanished again, a ghost in the tech world's margins. Elena's studio closed a month later, her social media dark. A letter arrived, not from her but from Mom. "We've lost so much," she wrote, her handwriting shaky. "But we're proud of you, Alex. We always were." The words were too late, a bridge burned by years of favoritism. I didn't reply, but I sent a final check through Nexus Future, enough to secure their rent for another year. Not for them, but for the closure I needed. Dad's voice came in one last voicemail. "You're a good son." I saved it, unplayed, and turned to Sam, who was grading papers at our kitchen table, his smile my home. Nexus Future's camps became my legacy. We expanded to London, partnering with a tech charity to reach kids in underserved boroughs. I flew out for the launch, Sam at my side, his excitement matching mine as we watched teens code their first apps. One boy, Liam, built a tool to track community resources, food banks, shelters, his eyes bright with purpose. "This is for my mom," he said, his voice quiet. I nodded, seeing the basement kid I'd been, and promised to fund his project. The camp's success landed Nexus on global news, our mission louder than our profits. Back in Seattle, the house in Queen and was alive with plans. Sam and I adopted a rescue dog, a scruffy mutt named Pixel, who chased squirrels in the garden. Mara threw a housewarming party, the team filling our backyard with laughter and beer. Jamal and Mia came, now mentors of the camps, their apps small empires of their own. "You changed everything," Jamal said, toasting me with a soda. I shook my head. "You did." The night ended with Sam's arm around me, Pixel asleep at our feet, the sounds waves a distant lullaby. The final rumor of Julian came via a tech forum, a whisper of a failed pitch in Dubai. Elena's name was absent, her trail cold. I didn't look for her. The family I'd been born into was a memory, its hierarchy a code I'd rewritten. My parents lived quietly, their calls unanswered but their needs met through Nexus Future's grants. The loft, the house, the camps, Sam's laugh. They were my family now, chosen and true. On my 31st birthday, the kids at the Seattle camp sent a video, their faces glowing as they showed off apps, a music mixer, a mental health tracker, a game about saving forests. "Thanks for seeing us," Mia said, her voice steady. I watched it with Sam, his hand in mine, and felt the last of the basement's weight dissolve. The empire I'd built wasn't just Nexus. It was the lives it touched, the futures it sparked. The sound whispered outside, its waves a song of resilience, and I knew I'd found my place, not in the shadows of my past, but in the light of what I'd created. Family isn't where you're born, it's where you're seen. Let go of what betrays you and build what lasts. I believed every word.